The historical footprint of Jesus of Nazareth has shaped the trajectory of entire civilizations for 2 millennia. The records left behind do not present a single, unified portrait, but rather a mosaic of its interpreted through various cultural and theological lenses. To examine this figure is to navigate a vast landscape of enduring influence and profound complexity. The divergence is not merely academic, it is a fundamental shift in perception. Where one tradition seeks the footprints of a historical figure in the dust of Judea, another finds an eternal celestial icon. This refraction of a single life creates a spectrum of belief, where the human and the divine are weighed against one another. The legacy left behind is not a monolith, but a complex mosaic woven from centuries of varying interpretations. Each era and each tradition has contributed its own perspective, creating a layered history where historical reality intersects with profound spiritual conviction. The way this central figure is perceived depends heavily on the theological lens applied to his life. One tradition views him as a cornerstone of divinity, another as a messenger of profound truth, and yet another as a significant teacher within a specific historical epoch. These interpretations do not just change the narrative, they redefine the very essence of who he was intended to be. The figure at the center of these discussions remains elusive, obscured by layers of centuries-old interpretation. Rather than a singular, unchanging portrait, what emerges is a mosaic of conflicting traditions and varying theological lenses. Each perspective attempts to reconstruct a person from fragments of text, ancient customs, and the enduring weight of religious conviction. As these distinct religious traditions expanded throughout the centuries, their theological frameworks began to diverge. This period of growth saw the formation of unique doctrinal lenses, which started to shape the historical and spiritual narratives surrounding his life and legacy. The rugged landscape of the Levant, a crossroads of ancient civilizations and shifting empires, served as the physical stage for these unfolding narratives. Within this shared geography, the echoes of a single historical period would eventually resonate through increasingly distinct spiritual currents, each shaped by the very terrain and culture from which they emerged. The divergence is found in the core attributes assigned to him. The writings present a spectrum of identity, from a divine figure central to a triune God, to a powerful prophet bearing miraculous signs, to a significant moral teacher within a strict monotheistic tradition. These variations represent fundamental disagreements regarding his very essence. The landscape of the first century was one of profound complexity. Under the weight of Roman authority, the Levant served as a crossroads where various traditions and political pressures converged. This period of intense cultural flux provided the backdrop for the emergence of beliefs that would eventually reshape the course of human history. Within this swirling sea of ideologies, the figure of Jesus did not emerge as a singular, undisputed icon. Instead, his identity was viewed through a fractured lens, interpreted differently by various groups across the region. These competing perspectives created a spectrum of belief, ranging from the perception of a localized teacher to that of a messianic claimant, each shaped by the specific theological and social tensions of the era. This perspective centers on a mission of profound cosmic significance. His teachings and the narrative of his life are viewed as the essential means. Beyond the theological significance lies a tangible, historical reality. The socio-political landscape of first-century Judea, under the watchful eye of the Roman Empire, provides the grounded, earthly stage upon which these events unfolded. Beneath the surface of imperial administration, a landscape of intense religious devotion and simmering social friction took shape. Various factions within Jewish society navigated their identities through varying lenses of resistance and piety, each interpreting their place within the empire differently. This era was defined by a pervasive sense of waiting, a collective breath held in anticipation of a shift that could redefine their world. Beyond the abstract unity of the divine, a different lens focuses on the earthly. This perspective examines the historical person, a figure rooted in the social and political realities of first-century Judea. It explores the human condition through the lens of his life, the physical presence, the mortality, and the tangible impact of a man navigating the complexities of Roman-occupied territory. Here, the focus shifts from eternal essence to the lived experience of a historical subject. The execution under Roman authority serves as a pivotal moment of historical and theological weight. The physical reality of the cross marks a profound transition, where the life of the teacher meets the gravity of imperial judgment, leaving an indelible mark on the landscape of Judea. Following the period of Roman judgment, a complex process of preservation began. The oral traditions that emerged in the aftermath served as the primary medium for transmitting his teachings across the region. This era was characterized by the spread of accounts through small, clandestine gatherings, where the memory of the teacher was woven into the burgeoning identity of a new community, long before the formalization of written texts. Beyond the theological significance of his death, there remains the profound impact of his earthly presence. In the dusty landscapes of first-century Judea, his message resonated with those often overlooked by the ruling powers. This movement did more than offer spiritual hope. It challenged the very fabric of social hierarchies and established religious norms, creating ripples of tension throughout the region. Following the early accounts, the focus shifts to a period of public ministry throughout the Levant. His teachings, often conveyed through parables, introduced radical concepts regarding social justice and spiritual devotion that resonated across various strata of society. This era is characterized by a growing influence that began to challenge the existing religious and political structures of the first century, leaving an indelible mark on the cultural landscape of the Roman Empire. A historical critical lens strips away later dogma to examine the man through the framework of Roman administration and surviving contemporary fragments. This perspective investigates the socio-political friction of the era, viewing his life not through the lens of miracles, but as This central paradox, the coexistence of the divine and the human within a single life, defines the Christian perception. The figure remains anchored in the historical reality of Judea, yet exists as an eternal presence, bridging the gap between the earthly and the celestial. Beneath these theological interpretations exists a shared, physical reality. The Roman province of Judea was a landscape defined by intense socio-political tension, where the weight of imperial administration pressed against deeply rooted local traditions. This was a world of rugged terrain and dusty trade routes, a Mediterranean frontier where the historical footprints of the era remain etched in the very soil of the Levant. Within this landscape of imperial control, a profound spiritual ferment was taking hold. The region was far from a religious monolith. Instead, it was a complex tapestry of competing sects and diverse interpretations of sacred law. These varying traditions, each seeking to define the divine relationship with humanity, created an atmosphere of intense intellectual and spiritual competition, a fertile ground where new radical ideas could take root and challenge established norms. His mission was centered on the delivery of the Injil, a divine revelation intended for his people. Through various signs and miracles, his life served as a testament to the power of the Creator, reinforcing the message he was sent to uphold. The principle of Toid emphasizes the absolute oneness of God. Because of this, any divine status for Jesus is rejected in favor of pure monotheism. Yet, he is not a figure of isolation. In the Islamic tradition, Isa is honored as a profound messenger and trusted with the Injil. He occupies a vital place within a continuous chain of prophecy, serving as a significant link in a sacred lineage that connects the ancient monotheistic messengers to the finality of the prophetic era. This perspective integrates him into a much larger tapestry of divine communication. He is viewed not as an isolated figure, but as a crucial messenger within a continuous lineage of prophets, part of a singular, unfolding history. Within the Islamic tradition, Isa is recognized as a prominent messenger, sent to guide his people toward the worship of one God. His role is understood through the lens of a continuous prophetic legacy, emphasizing the weight of the divine message he carried. Beyond his role as a herald, the narratives emphasize the miraculous circumstances surrounding his very existence. These signs of divine intervention serve to validate his presence, presenting his life as an undeniable testament to a power far greater than the physical world. Between the accounts of his departure and the prophecies of his return, there remains the historical reality of a man existing within the socio-political tensions of Roman-occupied Judea. Scholars examine this period to understand the cultural landscape of Galilee, where a teacher's presence could stir significant movement. This earthly context provides the essential foundation for the various traditions that have shaped his legacy. He is expected to defeat the Dajjal, the false Messiah. This battle will lead to the restoration of global order. In summary, the Islamic view sees Jesus as an honored human messenger. The focus remains on the absolute oneness of God. The Christian perspective shifts the focus toward the nature of divinity itself. Central to this view is the doctrine of the Incarnation, the belief that the divine took on human flesh. This introduces a complex theological landscape centered on the Trinity, where Jesus is recognized not just as a teacher, but as the eternal Word made manifest, embodying a bridge between the Creator and the created. The setting is a province under the heavy hand of Rome, where religious identity and political resistance were inextricably linked. In this era, the rhythms of daily life in Galilee were governed by ancient traditions and the looming shadow of imperial taxation. Investigating this period requires looking past later interpretations to find a man operating within the very real, physical pressures of first-century Judean society, where the observance of the law met the friction of occupation. Within this climate of tension, a profound sense of anticipation permeated the Jewish populace. It was not a singular expectation, but a fractured landscape of hope. Some awaited a political revolutionary to break the Roman yoke through force. Others looked for a priestly figure to restore ritual purity, while some yearned for a teacher who would clarify the complexities of the Torah. This spectrum of messianic longing created a volatile atmosphere, where every movement or miracle was scrutinized against a variety of competing visions for the future of Israel. This friction resides in the interpretation of the covenant itself. The debate centers on whether these new instructions align with the eternal nature of the law or suggest a transition into an entirely different era of spiritual practice. Beyond individual actions, there remains the profound expectation of a global gathering, the return of the dispersed to their ancestral lands. This movement is seen as a transformative signal, marking the end of exile and the dawn of a restored era. This period of restoration is marked by a profound shift in human perception, moving beyond the physical return to a deeper, spiritual unveiling. It is an era where layers of historical interpretation are stripped away, revealing a clarity that challenges previous understandings. The focus shifts from the movement of populations toward a fundamental transformation of truth, as the reality of this central figure begins to permeate the collective consciousness, bridging the gap between the material world and the divine. The legacy of this figure is not a single unified narrative, but a collection of divergent interpretations. Each tradition looks upon the same historical essence and identifies a different role: a teacher of law, a divine messenger, or a prophet whose influence remains etched in history. The worship of a human as God is seen as incompatible with absolute monotheism. This creates a tension between different theological frameworks. This divergence also shapes how his role within the prophetic lineage is understood. Rather than a mere historical figure, he is perceived by many as a vital catalyst for ethical transformation, a teacher whose influence on social conduct and moral law remains a subject of profound study across the Levant. The Islamic tradition introduces another layer to this historical mosaic, recognizing Jesus as a highly esteemed prophet within a long lineage of messengers. This perspective emphasizes his role in conveying divine truth and maintaining the absolute oneness of God. Here, the focus shifts from theological debate to a recognition of his importance within a broader, continuous cycle of revelation. A fundamental tension persists regarding his very essence. This debate moves beyond the events of his final days to address the core of his identity, whether he functioned as a human prophet conveying a divine message or as a divine entity inhabiting the earthly realm. This distinction fundamentally alters how his presence is perceived within the fabric of history. The accounts of his miracles serve as a pivot point for these differing interpretations. Where one tradition perceives undeniable proof of celestial power, another finds profound parables of spiritual truth or signs of a unique prophetic authority. The very same events are viewed through lenses that transform their meaning from supernatural occurrences into essential elements of a shared yet divergent history. This debate extends beyond mere identity into the very fabric of religious practice. The way his teachings interacted with the established law became a focal point of contention. For some, these interpretations were seen as a profound renewal of the covenant. For others, they appeared to be a departure from the long-held traditions of the Mosaic Code. Beneath these conflicting doctrines lies a shared foundation of stories, accounts of miracles and profound wisdom that resonate across different faiths. This common narrative thread binds these traditions to a singular, transformative figure, even as the specific meaning of his life begins to diverge into deeper questions of truth. The tension resides not in the historical events themselves, but in the interpretation of his essence. Where one tradition sees a messenger delivering divine law, another perceives a cosmic presence, and yet another finds a moral compass for humanity. It is this fundamental disagreement over his nature that transforms a single biography into a landscape of competing truths. Beyond the tension between the historical record and divine claim lies a third dimension, the icon. This figure has been continuously reimagined through the lens of human culture, serving as a canvas for the artistic and symbolic values of different eras. From the weathered, pigment, faded frescoes of antiquity to the dramatic, light-drenched canvases of later centuries, the image itself has evolved, reflecting the changing aesthetics and social identities of the civilizations that seek to portray him. Each tradition has constructed its own unique theological landscape, where one path emphasizes divinity and redemption, another finds profound prophetic wisdom, and a third observes the historical echoes of his life within a broader covenantal framework. These interpretations are distinct architectures of belief built upon the same foundational history. The convergence of these traditions occurs within a shared temporal reality. While the theological interpretations diverge, they all anchor themselves to the same historical epoch, a period that left behind a legacy far greater than the sum of its documented parts, creating a space where recorded history and spiritual narrative collide. Theological interpretations diverge sharply where these traditions part. For some, he is the divine Son, the central figure of a redemptive narrative. To others, he is Isa, a mighty messenger and prophet, walking a path of absolute obedience to the one God. Within the Jewish tradition, his life is viewed through the lens of historical context and the enduring legacy of the era in which he lived. These perspectives do not merely differ, they reshape the very nature of his identity, molding a singular figure into distinct theological icons. The historical record offers fragments of a man, while theology constructs a symbol of eternal significance. These layers do not necessarily conflict, rather, they exist in a state of constant dialogue. One view seeks the footprints left in the dust of antiquity, while another follows the light of spiritual conviction. To study this figure is to navigate the tension between what can be proven and what is believed.